The K-Jazz Show, Sundays on Kofifi FM 97.2.
Of course, the music of Gabi Motuba here on the K-Jazz Show. It is just gone 10 after 12 o'clock. And this is page 3, the third and final hour of today's gathering here. And I hope we're having a great afternoon with some of your favorite things, including jazz music, as we continue telling the best of our stories on your favorite jazz radio show, proudly powered by Kofifi FM 97.2. Remember, if you've missed any of the moments that we've shared, do head to our social media pages towards the end of the show. And today's playlist will be uploaded there, as well as the conversations that we'll be having here this afternoon. And this Sunday we're going to be sitting down at the feet of vocalist, composer, educator Gabi Motuba, who is known for her collaborative work with drummer Tumi Mohorosi. And of course, she became introduced became introduced to the notion of music in her formative years, where she discovered her vocal abilities. Has since then released music spanning from jazz to classical and to rock. And the release of her project Tafiri in 2018 has since become a household name since that release. And this afternoon she joins us live in studio to talk about her next adventure, her sophomore project, The Sabbath, and we get to listen to music from this wonderful project. This is page 3.
K-Jazz Show, Sundays on Kofifi FM 97.2.
Since beginning music at a very early age, and with many residencies and commissioned projects later, you've been quite busy, in music. And I want us to reflect on the past few years and some of those highlights.
I think that I got into music with a perception that, I could only be like a singer on stage. And once I went to university, like my whole understanding of music scholarship just changed and kind of just opened up. And this is why I've been able to do other things other than live performance, collaborations, working on film, composition projects, working on sound installations. This has been a direct influence of my higher education and of course like the community that informs me as an artist. So it's been an interesting journey, of kind of like self-reflection and just trying to understand this arena of art and music in South Africa. And
you join us this afternoon, Gabi, to debut the next conversation from you, The Sabbath. Let's unpack this project. What is it about, and of course, let's talk about the title itself.
Yes.
The Sabbath.
Yeah, so the Sabbath, from the biblical explanation, is a day after creation, and God took that day to rest, right? So my understanding and how I kind of wanted to think about this project is like the Sabbath is more like of a 3-dimensional experience, not just a day, but like a verb, like to Sabbath, to rest, to reflect, to look back on the journey, because a lot of the times we're not encouraged to just slow down and take account of all that has happened, and to look back, on all the events that have happened to us and that have affected us, right? So I wanted to write a project that was that for me personally and also communally.
Love that explanation, because I think when I was getting ready for this conversation, I thought, the Sabbath usually falls on the Saturday, so maybe you must have a thing with Saturdays. But now that you've put it into perspective, I hear it. Of course, we know when we kicked off the conversation, we played Order My Steps, when we started off. Let's talk about that composition, which is the lead single of the project that you shared with us initially.
A lot of the titles come from like biblical scriptures. So this one was like, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. During, I think I should say this, I wrote this project for my late father.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was going through a lot of grief. So, the church and kind of sermons and that spiritual kind of practice and meditation really just became a core of my daily practice, And I just, as I was listening to scriptures or listening to sermons, reading scriptures, certain, phrases just jumped out at me, that helped me not only through that time, but also to understand a little bit more about this biblical, context a little bit. So the prayers that was said by David, prayers, Paul's prayers in there were also featured. So these were kind of like little markers that were used to kind of conceptualize the songs, the compositions in and of themselves. Yeah.
Oh, man, Kofifi FM. We are within the listening session for page 3 this Sunday. Musician Gabi Motuba is in studio and we're spending time with her music as well, of her upcoming project, The Sabbath. And we've been talking about that. And she's kind of just putting it into perspective, what The Sabbath is all about and what inspired it. And of course, we'll be engaging with her about more of the work that she does around jazz music, including listening to the next composition, Your Brother's Blood, The Sabbath Movement. Tell us about that one.
Yes. So this is the story of Cain and Abel, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't see it coming. Like, okay.
Yes. So I was really inspired by this idea of, a sound coming from blood, a sound emanating from pain.
Wow.
So, I wanted to write something, an ode to this idea, that all that we have lost carries sound, the disappointment, the grief carries a sound,
Wow.
There's this beautiful line that says, let those who have an ear, let them hear,
Yes.
So, whoever kind of experienced it knows it, who's ever felt it knows it. So this is also speaking to that. I wanted to give grief a sound. So this was the Sabbath in 3 movements.
Get in touch on The K-Jazz Show on Kofifi FM 97.2. That's the Facebook page. At The K-Jazz Show on Twitter and at The K-Jazz Show on Instagram. That's right. And we're still spending time here with Gabi Motuba. It's just gone 12:30. And this is page 3, as we do every single Sunday between 12 and 1 o'clock. Taking several journeys in the musical lifetimes of our favorite artists. And we've been listening to the music of Gabi Motuba from her upcoming release, The Sabbath. And we are within the listening session for this project exclusively, for Kofifi FM 97.2, ahead of its release in September of 2024. Now, Gabi, your work has, included being a music educator. Which saw you teaching in Soweto to upcoming, students and musicians and many others who are interested in the craft. Tell us about, this part of your work and the talents that you've kind of had to work with or discovered maybe, during this walk.
Well, I'm of the belief that great artists of all disciplines have discovered something. I mean, this is why we appreciate them, right? And I feel that pedagogy, something that is teachable, is actually like within this information, and that is worth something. That is valuable. That is worth teaching. That is worth curriculum, and that is also worth building a curriculum around.
Yeah.
So this is why it's also so important that the people who are alive, who we revere, our great artists and poets and musicians, Bra Herbie, Bra Andile, it's so important to incorporate them into the institution.
That's right.
Because they have discovered something. They know something that we don't know. And for us to, allow for them to impart that information. So this is how I bring, how I think about my art also, merging it with education.
Yeah.
There's things that I have labored on. There's things that I understand fundamentally about vocals and to producing and sound textures, different vocal sound textures that I use as curriculum, to just... to teach a particular thing.
Yeah.
So this is how I think, as an intervention into the education space, this is what needs to take place.
I'm tempted to take it there, and I know it's probably make the conversation even longer. Mm-hmm. But let's go there. I've recently been in a conversation with a jazz pianist, and his reflections were, in order for us to be able to teach, jazz, we need to teach jazz from an American perspective, because somewhat they are, the founders of the sound. So they say. My question to him was, and I suppose I'm asking you now, do you think that having mentioned the Bab Hebi, Andile Yenana, the likes of Begim Seleku and etc., Mams Bungile Kumalo and all of them, do you think there's an opportunity for South African jazz in the classroom today?
Of course.
To lead as the medium, or maybe the jazz that we teach going forward?
Yes. And this is another one of my thinking. Your music, your classroom has to reflect your environment.
Yeah. Wow.
And also because it does, actually, whether you're conscious of it or not, you're actually learning in relation to what you understand and in relation to what you perceive anyway. So it would just work better.
Absolutely.
In terms of how to retain information and also how to apply information. If you had real examples, that spoke to whatever it is that you were seeing around you. So this is not just even limited to jazz. This is education across the board.
I hope they're listening at education.
Yes.
Nudge, hint,
it's
hint.
really important. We learn this in sound perception, how people come to hear sound, how people come to experience sound. It's very individual. It's also very ecological. It's very where you are, and for us to use that as an advantage. That kind of, actually, I think it propels your learning because you've kind of made a personal impression. What I think about is you've made a revelation. A revelation has already happened, and now the education can just happen
can flow.
Exactly, and happen in such an organic and beautiful way.
Like the rivers of Babylon, which we'll get into a little bit shortly. The Sabbath is is borrowed from the biblical definition, meaning the day of rest, Gabi. And you were inspired to write reflective work, and the project previously, Tafidi, Goddess of the Universe, as well, was also kind of a project that I think the themes here, maybe, and we said this off air, and I said I would ask you, that are deeply rooted in religion, right? But also of the earthly elements. Let's explore why you were interested in these themes as part of your storytelling.
I think I can answer this in maybe two parts.
Okay.
So the earthly element, I think you're speaking toward this idea of creation. So creation,
the universe,
elements, the universe, etc. Yeah. And the biblical element of it, you can hear it. I reference it a little bit in the song "The Law First Mention," which speaks about the beginning. Basically, it's a principle that people who've studied theology or biblical studies know about. And it says that whatever has been established in Genesis, the relationships that have been established in Genesis, this is how you get a more accurate interpretation of what happens in all the other books up until Revelation, right? So we're looking at what has been established first. And if we put into account all the elements, the earth, wind, fire, and water, and how we've experienced that kind of gives us an indication of how we're going to experience everything from that place on.
Wow.
You see, so I think this is how I marry, like, because I'm always talking about the same things, but it also helps me to reflect on, maybe this is what inspired, or this is the lineage in which I'm kind of thinking about these ideas.
It's very fascinating because whenever I get into a conversation with the likes of Bab Heavy, his thing is time. Consistently,
yes, exactly.
He tells the story of time,
exactly,
and it's always about where we've been, where we're going, and where we've, and where we are currently. Kofifi FM in conversation. It is a listening session with Gabi Motuba. In case you are wondering, the KJazz show is still very much in full swing, and we're listening to some of the music whilst reflecting on some of the things around the project. She calls it the Sabbath, and it comes out on the 3rd of September. Not month end,
but the 3rd, launch is on the 30th.
There we go.
August,
you see, my dates are doing this.
Yes. It's very important for us to mention.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I want to talk about the creative process and some of the people that you worked with before we get into the next song.
Dumi Mokhoresi on the drums.
Yeah.
Reza Kota on guitar, Vims Mavims on double bass, Tabang Tabani on percussion, Robin Fassi on the trumpet, Zozen Duli on violin, Siobhan Plaikis on viola, and Temba Mashobane on cello.
An all-star cast.
These are so incredible musicians that I've ever had the privilege of working with.
Yeah.
And they kind of create this sound.
Wow. We listen now to The Rapture, of course, the Rivers of Babylon I mentioned earlier, as we reference more scripture. I love this. And you kind of weaved it in such a way that we don't really see it, but until you say it, then I'm like, oh, actually, there it is in front of our face.
Yes.
Get in touch on The KJazz Show on Kofifi FM 97.2. That's the Facebook page. At The KJazz Show on Twitter and at The KJazz Show on Instagram. She calls this one Rapture here on Kofifi FM 97.2, The Rivers of Babylon. From the album, The Sabbath, of course. And her name is Gabi Motuba on Kofifi FM 97.2. The afternoon was blessed by a musical presentation that, allowed us to explore this project, in its entirety, almost in its entirety. I think ahead of its release on the 3rd of September. She's got a launch coming up. Tell us about that one.
Yes, come and experience this music live. Music can only be experienced live.
Yeah.
The CD does not do it justice.
Yeah.
So I'm having a performance of what you're hearing on the 30th of August at the UJ Weekend of Jazz.
Yes.
So come and experience it. Buy the ticket for the entire weekend because it's myself, Mandla Mlangeni, and Keenan Ahrens who are having shows on on consecutive days from the 29th to the 31st. So I am on the 30th. Come get your tickets. It's 700 Rand a ticket for the whole experience.
For the weekend. Yeah.
For the weekend.
Yeah.
Don't miss any of the shows. Bring your friends, bring your family, and come experience some beautiful, beautiful music.
Absolutely. And of course, do head to your social media for more information.
Yes, social media. The best place to find me is on Instagram at Gabi_Motuba. At Gabi_Motuba. Motuba. And just, all the tickets are on there. Come and just experience this. You know what? Like really, I was having a conversation with Keenan. Some music can only be experienced in person.
Absolutely.
I resonate with him so much. He's just like, you know what, Gabi? Some music you need to sit down, immerse yourself and listen and take it in and take in what the artist has composed.
Yeah. And it's saying.
And it's saying, and it's put
picture,
together.
a picture that they're painting. Because I think you and I were actually talking off air about how it's life imitating art and art imitating life. When we talk about music and we talk about, creating, and this is that moment for us where we realize what we had said and how it marries with, how we wrap up our conversation. But congratulations, ma'am, and thank you so much for coming through. Congratulations on the next chapter. We look forward to seeing you live on the stages, of course, as you present, this project to many of your wonderful, loving followers. And of course, thank you for joining us this Sunday.
Thank you so much for having me, Kofifi FM.
Yes,
thank you, Marco. It's been incredible.
Vocalist, composer, musician, and educator, and she joined us for page 3 this Sunday on the K Jazz Show.
The K Jazz Show, Sundays on Kofifi FM 97.2.